Okay, now in this presentation and in this video, I want to do a running presentation on all the important concepts which are involved in the demand for labor and especially those that are related to the deriving of the demand curve in the industry for the individual firm. And I also want to discuss the determinants of the demand of labor. So in this particular uh, video. So let us quickly get started. Now, there are going to be a couple of things which I'll be repeating, of course, but that is necessary to put things in the proper perspective. I want to just give one long perspective to the demand for labor so that there is no confusion left and all the important things related to it are covered in just one video. So let me just repeat what I did in the beginning, and that was related to the MRP analysis. Okay, so let's look at what the MRP analysis is. But before we start the MRP analysis, please recall I gave you an example saying that when you hire someone to work in your office or in your place, a maid comes in the morning, she works in your house. So when she is working, you are not hiring the maid because you want the maid to come to your house. It's not the affection for that particular maid which is the main factor behind hiring her. The factor for hiring labor is not labor itself. That is the important thing. Okay, so the important thing is um, it is something else. It's not the laborer. Okay, in this example where you are hiring someone to work in the house, you want a service, you want something done. So it's what the worker does which becomes the main reason why you are hiring the worker. Okay, what is the thing that the worker does in a factory, in a firm? What does the worker do? So you're not hiring the laborer for the worker. He is being hired for something else. What is that something else? That something else is the benefit. Now keep that word in mind, benefit. Okay, the benefit that you are getting. A maid comes and works for you. You don't get to earn anything when she is working inside your house, but you are getting a benefit. All right. So the benefit that you are getting, you're hiring the worker because of that. In the quest of that benefit, that's why the demand for worker is not direct, it's derived. Okay, so that is the important thing here. You're not hiring worker for the worker's sake, you are hiring it for something else, for something else's sake. So what is that something else's sake? In the case of the home, it is the benefit of the service, house cleaning and stuff like that. But when you're hiring someone in a firm, you're hiring that someone because that someone is not going to make a product for you. Don't know, that is also not the main reason. The main thing is that that product that he she makes is going to sell in the market, and there is going to be revenue. So when you hire a worker, you are hiring that worker for the extra revenue that he she is bringing in, and that, of course, extra revenue is called marginal revenue, MR. But in the firm's case, that revenue will not come unless and until the products are sold, and then the revenue comes. So we just make amend this term a little, and instead of just saying MR, marginal revenue, we say MRP, marginal revenue product, or the marginal revenue that comes by selling the product. But at the end of the day, that is the main thing. That's the first thing that you need to remember when you're dealing with labor. The second thing that you need to remember when you're dealing with labor, especially in the short run, in fact in the short run, is that labor is the only thing that you can alter in the short run. So capital and land cannot be altered. So when capital and land cannot be altered, and labor is the only thing which can be altered, it's the only factor of production that can be altered, then in the short run, the law of diminishing returns is going to set in. Why? Because there's limited capital, there's limited land. Initially, the efficiency of the worker will be very high. They will have enough land to work on, they will have enough machinery to work with. But as time goes by and you hire more and more workers, the additional workers will not have enough resources to work with or to work with the help of, and therefore their productivity may not be exactly the same. So, armed with that knowledge, I want you to look at this table which is given here. I have taken the example of 6 workers that you are hiring one after the other. So when you hire the first worker, he produces 6 units. Look at the second column, 6 units. These 6 units are called total physical product, the product that he's producing. But did we hire him for this? Not exactly. This is a means to an end. What is the extra that he's producing? He's producing MPP, marginal physical product. So initially the products were 0, now they are 6. What is your marginal revenue? Oh, yes. And crucially, please keep in mind that the price is also the marginal revenue. Why is the price the marginal revenue? Because here the firm will become a price taker in the market. This is a perfectly competitive market. And we are looking at the short term in the perfectly competitive market. So the price will be the same. You can sell any quantity, but the price is going to be the same. Now please keep one thing in mind, that when we are talking about MR, we are now talking about the demand of the product. So please don't confuse it with demand for labor. This is demand for the product. So 20, okay, that's the price. You can sell one unit, you can sell 10 units, you can sell 30 units, you can sell 36 units, whatever you want to sell. The price is going to be 20. So what is the MRP going to be for the first worker? It's simply going to be marginal revenue multiplied by the MPP, which is MRP. And you get the MRPs for all the workers. For when you hire one worker, the MRP is 120. 2, it's 160. Okay, and then that's the way it goes on. So and the wage rate, again, because you are a wage taker, so the wage rate is going to be 60. So now what happens, if you look at the MRP, look at the graph on the right, you have the marginal revenue product on the y-axis and the quantity of labor on the x-axis. So that is how you plot it. Initially marginal revenue product goes up. Initially it's 120, then it goes up to 160, then it goes up to 200. That's the maximum point it reaches. First it goes up. Why? Because till such time diminishing returns have not set in. Okay, you can increase your MRP. The revenue related to every other worker that you are hiring is now going up. But then when you hire the fourth worker, then what happens? Your marginal revenue begins to fall. You make only an extra 160. Okay, if you multiply 8 by 20 and then you multiply 10 by 20, then you will see that your marginal revenue was 200. MRP was 200 and your now it's 160. So your MRP has suddenly dropped. Uh, uh, it begins to taper down, it begins to come down. So now the question arises, now you are going down, and now the question arises that what is the quantity that you're going to produce? So answer, you simply take your supply curve, you take your cost curve. And from my previous video, please recall that the supply curve here for the price taking firm in the market, if it's a price taking firm, then this supply curve of labor will be a line horizontal to the x-axis. Why? Because you can hire any number of laborers. The wage rate is a given. Look at the diagram below. You can hire any number of workers. The wage rate is a given. The firm is a wage taker. Why? Because perfectly competitive conditions exist in the labor market as well. So now what happens is, what quantity are you going to hire? So here is the rule. What is the number of workers that you will hire? The number of workers that you're going to hire is, if you look at the diagram below, it's point E. That is where the wage rate becomes equal to the marginal revenue product, where the wage rate becomes equal to, that's the rule here, the wage rate becomes equal to the marginal revenue product. Okay, Why? Look at n. So this n is going to be what? If you look at the table, where does the MRP becomes equal to wage rate? It happens at 5. So when you hire 5 laborers, your MRP becomes equal to the wage rate, and that is the quantity of workers that you are going to hire according to the MRP analysis. What happens if you hire one extra worker? So if you hire one extra worker, if you hire the sixth worker, what's going to happen? Your cost, and please do remember that here the supply curve also represents your average cost curve. So your cost is going to be 60, but the MRP, the revenue that you get, if you hire workers equal to N2, so we are assuming here that N2 is 6, so your extra MRP that you are getting, the marginal revenue that you are getting by hiring the sixth worker is only 20, whereas the wage rate is only whereas the wage rate is 60. So actually, this is a situation in which the firm is not better off. So the firm will maximize its revenue when it hires 5 workers, because that is where MRP becomes equal to the wage rate. Okay, so let's now come to the. Okay, there's one more thing which I want to talk about, and that is the demand curve. Sometimes students get confused here a little bit. The demand curve for the firm. So, what is the demand curve for the firm? The demand curve for the firm is the same as the MRP curve. But when you add all these MRPs, then you get the industry demand curve. Okay, the industry demand curve is a linear line. Students ask, why is it a linear line? I simply say it's linear because we want to keep life simple. We don't add up all the curves on the top of the line in order to keep things simple in the industry. We simply make it a more linear demand curve. So there's no contradiction here. We just keeping it linear and downward sloping to keep things simple. Now this demand curve, this labor demand curve, can shift, and the factors that shift the demand curve, other than price, they are known as the determinants of demand of labor. Very quickly, what are these determinants of demand of labor? The price of the product itself. So if the price of the product that you are making, that the worker is making, it goes up, then the MRP goes up. Then the revenue generated by one extra worker goes up. So when the MRP is more, when the MRP is more and the wage is less, okay, then what happens? It makes sense to hire more workers. So your demand curve will shift outwards. Remember, when MRP is higher, demand curve shifts outward. Demand for the product goes up. Derived demand. There's more demand in the market. Okay, hire more workers, produce more products. Demand curve will shift to the right. Labor productivity goes up. Okay, so when labor productivity goes up, what happens? Your cost falls, your MRP goes up. Your MRP goes up, the rule is simple, hire more. The demand curve for labor will shift out. And another thing, what if the capital, the machinery, assuming that machinery can substitute the labor, okay, if the machinery becomes more expensive, then the machinery and workers are substitute to one another. So what's going to happen? You are going to say, now I'm going to work in a more labor intensive environment rather than a capital intensive, and you're going to hire more labor instead of hiring more machines, because machines are more expensive. Okay, so this is about it. Thank you very much. I hope this is understood.